This is former Vice President Joe Biden. In 2008, his running mate Barack Obama ran on an inspiring message of hope and change. On the night of the final presidential debate of the 2020 cycle, Joe Biden also ran on a message of doom and gloom.
220,000 Americans dead. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. And there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year. We're about to lose 200,000 more people. We're about to go into a dark winter. A dark winter.
Joe, you gotta stop. Your optimism is just too overwhelming.
The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year.
No, Joe is exaggerating. Bigly. The current expectation from the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation is that between the debate and the end of the year, in a worst-case scenario, there would be an additional 109,000 more deaths, not 200,000 like Joe claims.
If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives.
That's not true either. The IHME also estimates that if there were universal mask mandates, there would be, in a best-case scenario, an additional 48,000 deaths by the end of the year. So wearing masks wouldn't save 100,000 lives by the end of the year, like Joe claims.
The way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
You hear that, everyone? Joe Biden has a plan and is promising to end this. Let's hear his brilliant plan to prepare us for the dark winter of COVID.
What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing.
Okay, encouraging everyone to wear a mask all the time is not a plan. And testing is improving thanks to the private sector. Regardless, you can have all the testing in the world, but people are still gonna catch it. In other words, Biden and the Democrats do not have a plan to end COVID. Also, if Biden ends up winning the election, Trump will have set up the next administration pretty well. Operation Warp Speed, getting remdesivir approved as a treatment for emergency use, and enough ventilators to last the next 1,000 pandemics.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
I don't think we're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China.
And that's another lie. On March 18th, President Trump tweeted the following: "I have always treated the Chinese virus very seriously and have done a very good job from the beginning, including my very early decision to close the borders from China against the wishes of almost all. Many lives were saved." 8 hours later, Joe Biden quote tweeted Trump and said, "Stop the xenophobic fear-mongering." The week before, Joe tweeted, "A wall will not stop the coronavirus. Banning all travel from Europe or any part of the world will not stop it." No one was claiming that. Travel restrictions were designed to slow the spread, not stop it. Then Joe starts complaining that Trump initiated the travel restrictions late.
And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that.
According to the Washington Post, these 11 countries imposed travel bans between January 24th and January 30th. On January 31st, the United States announced its travel restrictions, the same day that these countries imposed their travel restrictions, including Italy, which was the only country in the G20 to do so at the time. So no, Trump was not late. Joe was lying. And if you think that Joe Biden would have closed the border, think again. In this January 27th op-ed piece in USA Today, Joe Biden references this tweet from then US citizen Donald Trump, who called for President Obama close down the flights from Ebola-infected areas. Biden claims that Trump was in favor of reactionary travel bans that would have only made things worse.
He thought I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
So remember, folks, Biden was against the travel ban before he was for it.
And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing.
Virtually nothing? Trump invoked the Defense Production Act 78 times between March and September. And you don't want to overuse it anyway. Joe Biden cannot stop lying.
But guess what?
What is it this time, Joe?
In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving.
Biden is referring to this New York Times article that tells the story of how President Trump was being a cheerleader for the economy on February 24th. The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. Stock market starting to look very good to me. But hours earlier, senior members of the president's economic team, privately addressing board members of the conservative Hoover Institution, were less confident. Oh my God, they were less confident than the president? Tell me more, New York Times. Thomas J. Phillipson, a senior economic advisor to the president, told the group he could not yet estimate the effects of the virus on the American economy. So he wasn't sure how the virus would affect the economy? Oh no. Then Larry Kudlow, the director of the National Economic Council, asserted that the virus was contained in the US to date, but now we just don't know. To summon the group, the implication was that an outbreak could prove worse than Mr. Phillipson and other Trump administration advisors were signaling in public at the time. So according to the article, a hedge fund consultant who attended the briefings wrote a memo giving the following opinion. What struck me, the consultant wrote, was that nearly every official he heard from raised the virus as a point of concern, totally unprovoked. So this memo, which we haven't seen, so I guess we got to take the New York Times word for it, made the rounds to investors, and those investors supposedly interpreted what was in the memo to be a time to sell. And that's it, that's the whole story. But Joe Biden is saying that members of the Trump administration went to Wall Street and said,
this is a really dangerous thing.
But that's not remotely what the New York Times article says. The only dangerous thing here, Joe, is your willingness to mischaracterize and lie about everything that Trump says and does.
I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific, what would that look like?
Now watch Joe Biden not answer a specific question.
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down.
No. According to the US Census, the goods and services trade deficit with China fell to $307.2 billion in 2019, and that's lower than Obama's last 3 years in office. That's down, not up, Joe.
When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules.
Except that every administration challenges China over their disputed airspace and maritime territory, so Biden acting like he's a tough guy is kind of funny.
And what's he do?
I don't know, Joe, what?
He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies.
I am so sick of Biden using this line. It's not true.
We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules, you play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically.
Or we could just worry about policy that benefits the United States and let other countries deal with China themselves. You know, like Trump is already doing. So Biden didn't answer Welker's question, but as you'll see, neither did President Trump. And that's only because Biden's response forced Trump to defend his trade policy.
What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going to make them pay.
First of all, China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is? It's called China.
Biden is full of it because he knows that that's not how tariffs work.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues.
Joe Biden is saying that international trade isn't a substantive issue. Got it.
If you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont.
I'm stopping you right there, Joe.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got
President
elected.
Let's
get off the subject of China. Let's talk sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
No, President Trump, Joe in fact can't do better. You're giving him way too much credit. Next, during the segment about race and criminal justice reform, Biden tried to put President Trump in a negative light.
Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000.
Let's look at some stats. So far, during his first term, President Trump issued 27 pardons and 11 commutations. During President Obama's first term, 22 were pardoned and 1 person was granted clemency. And that means Trump pardoned and granted clemency to more people in his first term than Obama did in his. Nice try, Joe.
And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration.
Wrong. At the beginning of President Obama's first term, the federal prison population was 201,280. At the end of 2016, it was 189,192, which means the federal prison population was reduced by 12,088, not 38,000. So Biden was off by nearly 26,000, whatever.
Let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime
Okay.
bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine.
Biden is referring to a 1986 anti-drug law, which Biden co-authored, that included a sentencing disparity between offenses for crack cocaine and powdered cocaine by a 100-to-1 ratio.
We have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs and there'd be no market for them.
And since the crack epidemic mostly affected African American communities, harsher sentencing for crack offenses added to so-called mass incarceration. So Biden tried to take the focus off the fact that he was tough on crime and pointed to alleged past quotes of Donald Trump.
This is the guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people.
Except Biden never put this up on his website because Trump never said it. Another lie, I know you're shocked. In reality, he wasn't talking about Trump. Joe Biden was talking about Joe Biden.
He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities.
But the violence associated with drugs is spewing out all over America, and that's terrible. Violent drug offenders will commit more than 100,000 crimes on this day alone.
This is the guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail.
In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs, not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time.
When you accuse others of doing things that you're in fact guilty of, that's called projection, Joe.
That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drugs.
And that statement set up what was, in my opinion, President Trump's best moment during the debate.
It's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a lot of it
response.
done. We released
didn't get
38,000.
anything
We got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison.
Nope.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that.
What President Trump is failing to understand here is that Joe Biden, having served 36 years in the Senate and 8 years as vice president, is finally going to make up for all of his past mistakes made during his 36 years in the Senate and 8 years as vice president.
Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why, Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
No, it's not. During President Obama's first 2 years in office, the Democrats had a majority in the House and a supermajority in the Senate. That's how they were able to push through Obamacare. Of course, Obamacare is a key reason why Democrats lost the House and the Senate, but for the sake of argument, let's pretend that a Republican Congress did in fact stop him from getting simple criminal justice reform passed. If that's the case, then how does he expect to be able to get Biden care passed? But good luck with that, President Biden. You're gonna need it. Anyway, that's it for now. Please slam that like button and be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. A very special thanks to Poofy for all of her help with this week's video. And you can follow her at Saint Soon Today on Twitter. And follow me on Twitter and Parler at Don't Walk Run. And follow me on Instagram at Don't Walk Run Productions. And I don't know, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.